The kidnapper's voice on the phone was cold. Professional. He told me I had 48 hours to deliver the ransom, or my daughter Emma would disappear forever. The FBI agent assigned to our case said they were doing everything possible. But I could see in his eyes, he did not think they would find her in time. My family begged me to stay calm, to let the authorities work. Little did they know, I had spent my entire adult life in situations exactly like this one. And the suburban mom they thought was helpless had actually rescued hostages from some of the most dangerous places on earth. Before we dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you've experienced family betrayal, hit that like button, you're not alone. My name is Patricia Chen, and for the past 15 years, I have been living what most people would consider the perfect suburban life in Winnetka, Illinois. I drive a Honda CR-V to soccer practice, volunteer at the school book fair, and make dinner reservations at family restaurants where the biggest decision is whether to order the chicken or the fish. But before I became the PTA mom that everyone knows, I was someone completely different. From age 23 to 38, I was Senior Operations Officer Patricia Chen of the CIA's Special Activities Division. I had spent 15 years in places that most people could not find on a map, doing things that would never appear in any official government record. I spoke fluent Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, and Spanish. I could disarm a man twice my size in under 30 seconds. I had extracted hostages from terrorist compounds in Afghanistan, infiltrated arms dealing networks in Eastern Europe, and coordinated rescue operations in South American jungles. But all of that changed when I met David Morrison at a coffee shop in Washington, D.C. during what was supposed to be a routine debriefing from a mission in Pakistan. David was a pediatric surgeon at Georgetown University Hospital, completely unaware that the woman who spilled coffee on his medical journals was coming down from an adrenaline high after spending 3 weeks undercover with weapons traffickers. Our relationship developed slowly, partly because of my security clearance restrictions and partly because I had never imagined building a normal life with someone outside the intelligence community. David knew I worked for the government in some kind of security capacity, but he assumed I was a desk analyst or policy researcher. The idea that his gentle girlfriend could kill someone with her bare hands never occurred to him. When I became pregnant with Emma at 37, I made the hardest decision of my career. I submitted my resignation to the CIA and committed to becoming the kind of mother who would be present for soccer games and school plays instead of missing birthdays because of classified missions on the other side of the world. Director Harrison Matthews, my supervisor for the final 8 years of my career, tried to convince me to reconsider during our exit interview. "You are one of our most valuable assets," he said, reviewing my service record. Successful extractions in 14 countries, fluency in 7 languages, tactical skills that surpass most of our male operatives. "Are you certain you want to give all of this up for domestic life?" "I want to give my daughter the stability I never had," I replied. "She deserves a mother who will be there when she needs me. And if she ever needs you in ways that require your particular skill set?" Director Matthews asked. At the time, his question seemed hypothetical. How could suburban motherhood possibly require the abilities I had developed during 15 years of international espionage? Emma was born on a snowy Tuesday in February, and holding her in my arms for the first time made me certain I had made the right choice. David was a devoted father who worked long hours at the hospital but always made time for bedtime stories and weekend adventures. We bought a 4-bedroom house in Winnetka with a backyard perfect for swing sets and birthday parties. For 15 years, I successfully maintained my cover as a regular suburban mom. I joined the PTA, coached Emma's soccer team when she was 8 years old, and attended every school concert and academic award ceremony. The other parents knew me as Patricia Morrison, the surgeon's wife who made excellent brownies and could always be counted on to drive carpool when someone else had a conflict. My relationship with David ended when Emma was 12, not because of any dramatic revelation about my past, but because we had grown into different people who wanted different futures. The divorce was amicable, with shared custody that allowed Emma to spend half her time with each parent. David never suspected that the woman he had married was anything other than what she appeared to be. My family had always been distant, partly because of my years working overseas and partly because they never understood my career choices. My parents, Robert and Linda Chen, owned a successful accounting firm in San Francisco, and viewed my government work as unnecessarily complicated and potentially dangerous. They preferred my younger brother Marcus, who followed a conventional path as a corporate lawyer, married his college girlfriend, and produced 2 children who played Little League baseball and took piano lessons. Why could you not have found a nice stable job like Marcus? My mother asked during one of our infrequent phone conversations. All this traveling and uncertainty cannot be good for Emma. If only she knew that my traveling had involved infiltrating terrorist networks rather than attending business conferences. My relationship with my parents became even more strained after my divorce from David. They viewed the end of my marriage as evidence that I had never learned how to prioritize family stability over personal ambition. First you choose that mysterious job that kept you away all the time, and now you cannot even keep your marriage together, my father said during Emma's 13th birthday party. When are you going to start making responsible decisions? The irony was that my CIA career had been entirely about making life or death decisions with perfect accuracy under extreme pressure. But I could not explain that to parents who believed I had wasted my 20s and 30s on some kind of glorified government internship. Emma, meanwhile, was thriving as a typical American teenager. At 15, she was an honor roll student at New Trier High School, played varsity tennis, and had been accepted into a competitive summer program for students interested in international relations. She was intelligent, confident, and completely unaware that her mother had spent 15 years in situations where split-second decisions determined whether people lived or died. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. Emma left for school at 7:30, complaining about a history test she felt unprepared for despite having studied for hours the night before. I had a dentist appointment at 10, followed by a lunch meeting with other PTA members to plan the spring fundraiser. At 11:45, while I was discussing silent auction items with 3 other mothers at a restaurant downtown, my phone rang with a call from New Trier High School. Mrs. Morrison, this is Principal Williams. I need you to come to the school immediately. There has been an incident involving Emma. My blood turned cold. During my CIA years, I had developed an ability to assess threat levels within seconds of receiving new information. The tone in Principal Williams' voice triggered every alarm system I had trained myself to recognize. What kind of incident? I asked, already calculating the fastest route to the school. I cannot discuss details over the phone, but please come as quickly as possible. The police are here. I drove to New Trier in under 15 minutes, my mind cycling through every possible scenario that could require police involvement. Emma was not the kind of student who got into trouble. She did not experiment with drugs, she maintained good grades, and her friend group consisted of other academically focused teenagers who spent their free time studying or participating in school activities. Principal Williams met me in the main office, accompanied by 2 uniformed police officers and a detective wearing a rumpled suit that suggested he had been pulled away from another case. Mrs. Morrison, I am Detective James Rodriguez with the Cook County Sheriff's Department, the detective said, his voice gentle but serious. We need to talk about Emma's disappearance. Disappearance? The word felt foreign in my mouth. What do you mean disappearance? Emma left her 4th period biology class to use the restroom at approximately 10:30 this morning, Principal Williams explained. When she did not return after 20 minutes, her teacher sent another student to check on her. Emma was not in the restroom, and a search of the entire building revealed that she was not on school property. Detective Rodriguez consulted his notebook. Security cameras show Emma leaving through the east entrance of the building at 10:37 a.m. She appeared to be walking voluntarily toward the student parking lot. That does not make sense, I said, trying to process information that contradicted everything I knew about my daughter. Emma would never leave school without permission. She has never even had a detention. We reviewed the parking lot security footage, Detective Rodriguez continued. At 10:39, Emma approached a black SUV with tinted windows. She spoke briefly with someone inside the vehicle, then got into the passenger seat. The vehicle left the parking lot heading north on Winnetka Avenue. The professional part of my mind immediately began analyzing the situation. Voluntary approach to an unknown vehicle suggested either coercion or deception. The brief conversation indicated that Emma knew the person in the SUV or was being convinced to trust them through some form of manipulation. "Do you have a license plate number?" I asked. "The plates were obscured by mud or some other substance," Detective Rodriguez replied. "We are working with the school's IT department to enhance the video quality, but it may take several hours to get usable information." Several hours. In hostage situations, the first few hours were critical for establishing communication, determining the kidnappers' motivations, and planning rescue operations. Every minute that passed reduced the likelihood of a successful recovery. "Has anyone contacted you demanding money or making threats?" Detective Rodriguez asked. Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I did not recognize. Detective Rodriguez nodded, indicating that I should answer while he listened. "Patricia Morrison," I said, activating the speaker function so that everyone in the room could hear the conversation. "You have something that belongs to us," a man's voice said. The accent was slight, possibly Eastern European, and the tone was calm in a way that suggested professional experience with kidnapping operations. "I do not know what you are talking about," I replied, though my heart was racing as I realized Emma had indeed been taken by people who believed I possessed something they wanted. "Your daughter is safe for now, but that will change if you do not cooperate. We know who you are, Patricia Chen. We know what you did in Bucharest in 2009. Bucharest. 2009. A mission that was supposed to have been classified at the highest levels, involving arms dealers who had been selling weapons to terrorist organizations throughout Eastern Europe. I had spent 6 weeks undercover, ultimately gathering evidence that led to the arrest of 12 high-level weapons traffickers and the seizure of millions of dollars worth of illegal armaments. "I do not know what you are talking about," I repeated, though my mind was racing through the implications of what the caller had just revealed. "You took something from Viktor Kozlov before he was arrested. Something that did not belong to the American government. We want it back." Viktor Kozlov had been the leader of the trafficking ring, a man who had spent 20 years building a network that supplied weapons to some of the most dangerous terrorist organizations in the world. During the final phase of the operation, I had accessed his personal safe while gathering evidence for the arrest warrants. "I am a suburban mother from Illinois," I said, maintaining the cover identity I had used for 15 years. "I have never heard of Viktor Kozlov or anyone in Bucharest." "You have 48 hours to remember," the caller said. "We will contact you with delivery instructions. If you involve law enforcement beyond what is already happening, your daughter will disappear. If you attempt any rescue operations, your daughter will disappear. If you do not deliver what we want within 48 hours, your daughter will disappear permanently." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone while Detective Rodriguez, Principal Williams, and the uniformed officers processed what they had just heard. "Mrs. Morrison," Detective Rodriguez said carefully, "do you have any idea what the caller was referring to? Any connection to Bucharest or someone named Viktor Kozlov?" This was the moment I had hoped would never come. For 15 years, I had successfully compartmentalized my CIA career from my civilian life. Emma knew nothing about my past. My ex-husband knew nothing about my past. My neighbors, friends, and fellow PTA members knew nothing about my past. But now, people from that past had taken my daughter, and maintaining my cover might cost Emma her life. "I need to make some phone calls," I said, avoiding Detective Rodriguez's question while calculating how much I could reveal without compromising national security or active CIA operations. "Mrs. Morrison, if you have information that could help us find Emma, we need to know immediately," Detective Rodriguez pressed. "I understand that, but I need to clarify what I'm legally allowed to discuss. Some aspects of my background are covered by federal confidentiality agreements." Detective Rodriguez's expression sharpened. "What kind of background?" Before I could answer, my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed David's number. I answered immediately, knowing that he would be frantic with worry about our daughter. "Patricia, I just got a call from the school. They said Emma is missing. What is happening?" "David, I need you to stay calm and listen to me carefully," I said, aware that Detective Rodriguez was taking notes about everything I said. Emma has been taken by people who believe I have something they want. I am working with the police to get her back safely. Taken? You mean kidnapped? David's voice rose with panic. Who would kidnap Emma? What could they possibly want from us? It is not about us, David. It is about my work before Emma was born. Your government job? I thought you were an analyst or something. For 15 years, I had allowed David to believe that my CIA career involved desk work and policy research. The truth was that I had been part of the most elite operational unit in the intelligence community, trained to handle exactly the kind of situation that was now threatening our daughter's life. David, I need you to trust me and stay away from the school. Do not talk to reporters if any show up. Do not post anything on social media. I will call you as soon as I know more. Patricia, you are scaring me. What kind of work did you really do? The kind that taught me how to get our daughter back, I said, ending the call before he could ask more questions that I was not ready to answer. Detective Rodriguez was staring at me with the expression of someone who was beginning to realize that this case was more complicated than a typical kidnapping. Mrs. Morrison, I think we need to have a more detailed conversation about your background and its relationship to your daughter's disappearance. I looked around the principal's office, aware that Emma's classmates were probably wondering why police cars were parked outside their school. In a few hours, the local news would pick up the story. By tomorrow, everyone in Winnetka would know that the quiet PTA mom had somehow attracted the attention of international criminals. Detective Rodriguez, what I am about to tell you cannot leave this room without proper federal authorization, I said. My name is Patricia Chen, and until 15 years ago, I was a senior operations officer with the Central Intelligence Agency. The silence that followed my revelation was broken only by the sound of Principal Williams dropping his coffee mug onto the floor. But that was just the beginning. Because retrieving what Victor Kozlov's associates wanted would require me to access resources I had not touched in 15 years, capabilities I had sworn never to use again, and contacts who believed I had retired permanently from the world of international espionage. Emma's life depended on me becoming someone I had spent 15 years trying to forget. And I had less than 47 hours to do it. Detective Rodriguez arranged for me to speak privately with FBI Special Agent Sarah Coleman, who arrived at the school within an hour of my CIA revelation. Agent Coleman was a woman in her early 40s with short blonde hair and the kind of intense focus that suggested extensive experience with high-stakes kidnapping cases. Mrs. Morrison, or should I say Agent Chen, I have been briefed on your situation by Detective Rodriguez, Agent Coleman said as we sat in an empty classroom away from the main office activity. I need to understand exactly what we are dealing with regarding this Victor Kozlov connection. Victor Kozlov was a Ukrainian arms dealer who operated throughout Eastern Europe from the late 1990s until his arrest in 2009, I explained, accessing memories I had not revisited in over a decade. His network supplied weapons to terrorist organizations, rebel groups, and criminal syndicates across 3 continents. The CIA operation that took him down was codenamed Operation Blackbird. Agent Coleman took detailed notes as I continued. I spent 6 weeks undercover as a buyer representing a fictional terrorist cell. The mission culminated with simultaneous raids in 4 countries that dismantled his entire operation and led to the seizure of weapons caches worth approximately $200 million. And what did you take from Kozlov's personal safe that these kidnappers want back? This was the question I had been dreading since the phone call. The item in question was not something I had taken as evidence for the operation. It was something I had discovered accidentally and kept for reasons that had seemed justified at the time but would be difficult to explain to federal agents 15 years later. Kozlov kept detailed records of his buyers, including government officials, military officers, and intelligence agents from multiple countries who were purchasing weapons illegally, I said carefully. Among those records was a flash drive containing bank account information, transaction details, and personal communications that implicated dozens of people in positions of power. And you kept this flash drive instead of turning it over as evidence. The people on that drive included assets that the CIA was using for other operations, I explained. Revealing their identities would have compromised ongoing missions and potentially gotten them killed. My supervisor, Director Matthews, made the decision to classify the drive at the highest level and store it separately from the rest of the evidence. Agent Coleman looked up from her notes. Where is this flash drive now? In a safety deposit box that only I can access, I admitted. Director Matthews died in a car accident 3 years after my retirement. As far as I know, I am the only person alive who knows the specific location. What I did not tell Agent Coleman was that the flash drive also contained information about American officials who had been involved in illegal arms purchases. Senators, Pentagon officials, and even CIA personnel who had been using Kozlov's network for unsanctioned operations that would have caused international incidents if exposed. My phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. When I opened it, I found a photograph of Emma sitting in what appeared to be a windowless room, her hands zip-tied behind a chair. She looked frightened but unharmed, and someone had placed today's newspaper in her lap to prove the photo was recent. Agent Coleman examined the photo on my phone. We need to get our technical team to analyze this image for any identifying details about the location. How long will that take? I asked, though I already knew the answer would not be fast enough. Several hours at minimum, possibly longer if the kidnappers were careful about concealing identifying information. Several hours was too long when Emma was being held by people who had demonstrated detailed knowledge of classified CIA operations. These were not amateur criminals who had stumbled onto a kidnapping opportunity. They were professionals who had been planning this operation specifically to recover the flash drive I had kept hidden for 15 years. While Agent Coleman coordinated with FBI technical specialists, I used the privacy of the empty classroom to make a phone call I had hoped never to make again. The number I dialed was a secure line that should have been disconnected years ago, but intelligence agencies rarely completely sever their connections to valuable former assets. Langley Operations Center, how can I direct your call? The voice was crisp and professional, exactly as I remembered from my active duty years. This is Patricia Chen, former Senior Operations Officer. Badge number 77492. I need to speak with Deputy Director Harrison immediately. Agent Chen, please hold while I verify your identity and locate Deputy Director Harrison. The fact that they were able to verify my identity within seconds told me that the CIA had been monitoring my civilian life more closely than I had realized. After 3 minutes on hold, a familiar voice came on the line. Patricia, I heard about Emma. How can we help? Deputy Director Michael Harrison had been a junior analyst during my final years with the agency, someone I had mentored through his early career development. His promotion to Deputy Director meant he now held one of the most powerful positions in American intelligence. Michael, I need access to the Kozlov material. The kidnappers know exactly what I took from his safe, which means there is a leak somewhere in the system. The Kozlov files have been classified above top secret since your retirement, Michael replied. Only 3 people currently have access to that material, and all 3 have been thoroughly vetted within the past year. Then how do Viktor Kozlov's associates know about the flash drive? How do they know about my involvement in the Bucharest operation? That information should be buried so deep that it would take years of investigation to uncover. Michael was quiet for several seconds. Patricia, there is something I need to tell you. Viktor Kozlov was released from a Ukrainian prison 6 months ago. Officially, it was due to a prisoner exchange related to the ongoing conflict with Russia. Unofficially, we believe someone with significant influence facilitated his release specifically so he could pursue recovery of his stolen assets. The implications of Michael's revelation were staggering. If Kozlov had been released and was actively working to recover the flash drive, then Emma's kidnapping was not an opportunistic crime. It was a carefully planned operation that had probably been months in the making. Is Kozlov in the United States? I asked. We do not know his current location, but we have intelligence suggesting he has been rebuilding his network with backing from people who want access to the information on that flash drive. Michael, I need a full tactical team and authorization to retrieve my daughter using any means necessary. You know I cannot approve that kind of operation on American soil without congressional oversight and Department of Justice involvement. The legal complications alone would take weeks to resolve. Then I will handle this myself. Patricia, you have been out of the field for 15 years. You do not have current intelligence, updated equipment, or operational support. Attempting a solo rescue mission would be suicide. But Michael did not understand that I had never really left the field. During my 15 years as a suburban mother, I had maintained my physical training, kept my combat skills sharp, and stayed current with technological developments that could be useful in emergency situations. Other parents thought I was simply a fitness enthusiast who enjoyed martial arts and target shooting as hobbies. They had no idea I was maintaining capabilities that I hoped never to use again. "I need one favor," I said to Michael. "Emma goes to New Trier High School. There is a substitute teacher there named Marcus Webb who started working at the school 3 months ago. I need you to run a background check on him immediately." "Why Marcus Webb specifically?" "Because Emma mentioned him several times recently, and she never talks about teachers unless something unusual is happening. A new substitute teacher who shows particular interest in students could be gathering intelligence for a kidnapping operation." "I will have someone look into Webb within the hour," Michael promised. "But Patricia, if you are planning what I think you are planning, I cannot provide official support. Anything you do will have to be completely off the books." "Understood," I replied, ending the call and immediately dialing another number I had memorized years ago but never expected to use. Tommy Nakamura answered on the second ring. "Pacific Security Solutions, this is Tommy." Tommy had been my partner for over 50 CIA missions, a former Navy SEAL who had transitioned to private security work after retiring from government service. His company provided protection for corporate executives and high-net-worth individuals, but I knew he still maintained the skills and contacts necessary for more specialized operations. "Tommy, it is Patricia. I need your help." "Jesus, Patricia, I have not heard from you in 10 years? What is going on?" "Someone has taken Emma. Professional kidnappers who know about my CIA background. I need extraction equipment and tactical support." "Where are you?" "Chicago suburbs. The kidnappers want the Kozlov flash drive in exchange for Emma's safety." Tommy was quiet for a moment. He had been with me during the Bucharest operation and knew exactly what information was contained on that drive. "How soon do you need me there?" "I have less than 47 hours before the exchange deadline. I can be in Chicago by tonight with a full tactical kit. Do you have a secure location where we can plan the operation?" "I will find one. Tommy, this cannot be traced back to your company or any of your current clients." "Understood. Send me a secure address and I will be there by 2100 hours." After ending the call with Tommy, I returned to the main office where Agent Coleman was coordinating with multiple FBI units to establish a command center and begin the official investigation. Detective Rodriguez was briefing additional local police officers who had arrived to assist with evidence collection and neighborhood canvassing. "Mrs. Morrison, we need to set up monitoring equipment at your house in case the kidnappers call your home phone," Agent Coleman said. "We also need to interview your ex-husband, your parents, and anyone else who might have information about people who could have targeted Emma." "Agent Coleman, with respect, traditional kidnapping protocols are not going to work in this situation," I said. "These are not criminals who made an impulsive decision to grab a random victim. They are professionals who have been planning this operation specifically to leverage my background against me. Which is exactly why we need to follow established procedures and involve all available resources," Agent Coleman replied. "This case requires careful coordination between multiple agencies and jurisdictions." But I knew from experience that careful coordination between multiple agencies was a luxury that hostage situations rarely afforded. While the FBI was establishing communication protocols and requesting jurisdiction clarifications, Emma was being held by people who had demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of classified operations and access to resources that suggested significant financial backing. My phone buzzed again with another text message. This time, it was not a photo but a precise address in an industrial area of South Chicago, followed by instructions, "Tomorrow night at midnight. Come alone. Any surveillance or law enforcement presence will result in immediate termination of negotiations." Agent Coleman read the message over my shoulder. "We can have that location under surveillance within 2 hours. SWAT teams positioned around the perimeter, snipers in overwatch positions, tactical units ready for immediate deployment. And Emma will be dead the moment they detect any law enforcement presence, I replied. These people are not amateurs who will be intimidated by a show of force. So what do you suggest? I suggest you let me handle this the way I was trained to handle situations exactly like this one. Agent Coleman's expression hardened. Mrs. Morrison, you are a civilian who has been out of the intelligence community for 15 years. This is an active FBI investigation, and we cannot allow unauthorized personnel to interfere with federal law enforcement operations. Agent Coleman, with all due respect, I have successfully completed hostage rescue operations in countries where your jurisdiction has no meaning and your backup is 12 hours away by helicopter. My daughter's life is not going to be saved by following a manual written for domestic kidnapping cases. The tension in the room was thick as Agent Coleman weighed her options. She knew that attempting to prevent me from acting independently would be nearly impossible, but authorizing my involvement would violate numerous federal regulations and potentially compromise her career. What exactly are you proposing? She asked carefully. I am proposing that you give me 24 hours to attempt recovery through unofficial channels. If I am unsuccessful, or if the situation escalates beyond my capabilities, then you can implement whatever tactical response you think is appropriate. And if you get yourself killed attempting a solo rescue mission, then Emma will still need you to find her before the 48-hour deadline expires. Agent Coleman stared at me for a long moment, clearly calculating the professional and personal risks of agreeing to my proposal. 24 hours, she said finally. But I want regular communication, and if you encounter any situation that requires immediate backup, you contact me immediately. As I left New Trier High School that afternoon, I knew I was walking away from the carefully constructed civilian life I had built over the past 15 years. Patricia Morrison, the PTA mom who volunteered at school fundraisers and made organic lunches for her teenage daughter, was about to disappear. In her place, Patricia Chen, senior operations officer of the CIA's Special Activities Division, was coming out of retirement for the most important mission of her career. The first stop I needed to make was to a storage facility in Schaumburg that I had rented under an assumed identity 15 years ago. Unit 247 contained equipment and documents that Patricia Morrison, Suburban mother, should never have possessed. But Patricia Chen, intelligence operative, had learned long ago that retirement from the CIA did not guarantee that the CIA's enemies would retire from pursuing you. The storage unit was climate-controlled and secured with both electronic locks and physical barriers that would deter casual thieves but not professional operatives. Inside, I had maintained a go bag containing cash in multiple currencies, 3 sets of false identification documents, encrypted communication devices, and basic surveillance equipment that I had updated periodically over the years. But more importantly, the unit contained my personal weapons cache. A Glock 19 with custom modifications that improved accuracy and reduced recoil. A SIG Sauer P320 compact that could be easily concealed. A tactical shotgun for close-quarters combat. Ammunition, body armor, and specialized equipment that most people would recognize only from military action movies. As I loaded gear into my Honda CR-V, I caught myself thinking about how surreal it was to be placing assault weapons in the same vehicle where I had driven Emma to countless soccer practices and school events. The suburban mother identity that I had inhabited so completely was dissolving with each piece of tactical equipment I retrieved. My phone rang as I was leaving the storage facility. The caller ID showed my mother's number, and I realized that news of Emma's disappearance had probably reached my parents through the extended family network that somehow always managed to spread information faster than official channels. Patricia, your father, and I just heard about Emma from your cousin Michelle, my mother said without preamble. What is this about a kidnapping? Why have we not heard from you directly? Mom, I have been dealing with the police and FBI all day. I was planning to call you tonight when I had more information. FBI. My father's voice came through the phone, indicating they had me on speaker. What kind of kidnapping requires FBI involvement? And why would someone target our family? This was the conversation I had hoped to avoid. My parents knew nothing about my CIA background, and explaining it now would create complications I did not have time to manage. The kidnappers seem to believe I have access to something they want, I said carefully. The FBI is involved because it might be related to my old government job. Your government job? My mother's voice rose with confusion. You analyzed policy papers or something. What could kidnappers possibly want from that? Before I could formulate an answer that would satisfy them without revealing classified information, my father jumped in with advice that revealed exactly how little they understood about my situation. Patricia, you need to just give them whatever they want and get Emma back safely. Material possessions are not worth risking your daughter's life over. It is not that simple, Dad. It is exactly that simple, he replied with the same tone he had used when I was a teenager making what he considered poor decisions. You have always overcomplicated situations that have straightforward solutions. Give them what they want, and this whole nightmare will be over. My mother added her own perspective. Maybe this is a wake-up call about the kind of life you have been living. All this secrecy about your work, the divorce from David, raising Emma as a single mother. Perhaps it is time to consider moving back to California where your family can provide proper support. The conversation crystallized everything about my relationship with my parents that had driven me toward a career in intelligence in the first place. They viewed complex situations through the lens of their own limited experience, assuming that problems could be solved through conventional approaches and family intervention. Mom, Dad, I need to go. I will call you when Emma is safe. Patricia, wait, my father said. Your brother Marcus is flying to Chicago tonight. He can help coordinate with the legal and financial aspects of this situation. The last thing I needed was my lawyer brother arriving to complicate an operation that required complete secrecy and operational security that he could never understand. Do not let Marcus come to Chicago, I said firmly. This situation is more complicated than you understand, and additional family members will only create problems for law enforcement. We are trying to help, my mother protested. Then help by staying in California and letting me handle this. I ended the call before they could argue further, but I knew that Marcus would probably ignore my request and fly to Chicago anyway. My family's response to crisis had always been to increase involvement and oversight, exactly the opposite of what this situation required. By 6 o'clock that evening, I had retrieved the flash drive from my safety deposit box at a bank in downtown Chicago and driven to a hotel near O'Hare Airport where Tommy would be arriving. The Marriott was busy enough to provide cover for clandestine meetings while being upscale enough that suspicious activity would be quickly noticed by security staff. Tommy Nakamura looked exactly as I remembered him, despite the 15 years that had passed since our last mission together. He was still compact and athletic at 52 years old, with graying black hair and the kind of alert eyes that missed nothing in his immediate environment. He carried a single duffel bag that I knew contained enough specialized equipment to outfit a small military unit. You look good for someone whose daughter has been kidnapped by international arms dealers, Tommy said as we embraced briefly in the hotel lobby. You look good for someone who is supposed to be running a legitimate security business. Who says it is not legitimate? I provide security services for people who need them. Some of those people just happen to need more specialized services than others. We took the elevator to a suite on the 14th floor that Tommy had reserved under one of his business aliases. Once we were secured inside with electronic countermeasures activated, Tommy opened his duffel bag to reveal equipment that would have impressed active-duty special operations units. Okay, walk me through the situation, Tommy said, spreading tactical maps of Chicago across the hotel room desk. I briefed him on everything that had happened since Emma's disappearance, including the connection to Viktor Kozlov and the specific demands the kidnappers had made. So they want the flash drive in exchange for Emma, but you think this is more complicated than a simple prisoner exchange, Tommy summarized. The timing is too convenient, I explained. Kozlov gets released from prison, his associates immediately target my daughter, and they demonstrate detailed knowledge of classified operations. Someone has been feeding them information about my background and my current situation. Tommy studied the address where the exchange was supposed to take place. Industrial area, multiple access routes, limited law enforcement coverage. Good location for an exchange if you actually plan to honor the agreement and release the hostage. But terrible location if you plan to eliminate the witness after recovering the flash drive. Exactly. Tommy pulled out a laptop and began accessing satellite imagery of the exchange location. If I were planning to kill you after getting the drive, I would choose somewhere more isolated with better disposal options. Which means either they genuinely plan to release Emma, or they have a different location in mind for the actual exchange. Tommy enhanced the satellite images to show building layouts and street configurations around the designated meeting point. There are 17 buildings within a half-mile radius that would be suitable for holding a hostage. Abandoned warehouses, vacant office buildings, storage facilities with limited public access. How long would it take to check all 17 locations? With proper reconnaissance equipment and a full tactical team, maybe 6 hours. With just the two of us, closer to 12 hours. We do not have 12 hours. The exchange is tomorrow night. Tommy closed the laptop and looked directly at me. Patricia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with your answer. Go ahead. Are you prepared to kill people to get Emma back? The question hung in the air between us. During my CIA career, I had killed 7 people in situations where lethal force was the only option for mission success or personal survival. But that had been 15 years ago, in foreign countries, against people who posed threats to national security. Yes, I said without hesitation. If someone is threatening my daughter's life, I will do whatever is necessary to protect her. Tommy nodded. Good. Because the people we are dealing with will not hesitate to kill both of you if they think it serves their purposes. We spent the next 3 hours planning multiple scenarios for the exchange operation. Tommy's experience with private security had given him access to advanced surveillance technology and tactical equipment that was often superior to what government agencies used. We need eyes on the exchange location at least 4 hours before the meeting, Tommy explained, showing me miniature cameras and listening devices that could be deployed remotely. If they are planning to double-cross you, we will see preparations for additional personnel or weapons. What about Emma's location? We still do not know where they are holding her. That is the biggest risk in this whole operation, Tommy admitted. If she is not at the exchange location, and we cannot identify where they are keeping her, then taking down the kidnappers might get her killed by associates we have not identified. My phone buzzed with a text message from Agent Coleman. Any updates on your unofficial approach? FBI technical team has identified 3 possible locations based on background analysis of the photograph. I showed the message to Tommy. Should we coordinate with the FBI? Not if you want operational security. The more people who know about our plans, the greater the chance that information leaks to the kidnappers. Tommy was right, but I also knew that alienating Agent Coleman completely could create problems if the situation escalated beyond what Tommy and I could handle independently. I typed back to Agent Coleman, making progress through alternative channels. Will contact you if I need backup. At 10 o'clock that evening, my phone rang with a call from David. I had been expecting him to contact me demanding updates about Emma's situation. Patricia, I have been thinking about what you said earlier regarding your government work, David said. I need to understand what we are really dealing with here. David, I cannot discuss classified information, especially over an unsecured phone line. Classified information. Jesus, Patricia, what kind of work were you really doing before Emma was born? I looked at Tommy, who was monitoring police scanners and FBI communications to track official law enforcement activity related to Emma's case. He gestured for me to keep the conversation brief to maintain operational security. David, I will explain everything after Emma is safe. Right now, I need you to stay away from your apartment and avoid any predictable routines. The people who took Emma might decide to target you as additional leverage. Target me. Patricia, you are terrifying me. What have you gotten our family involved in? I have not gotten our family involved in anything. These people are from my past, and they are using Emma to force me to give them something they want. Then give it to them. Whatever it is, it cannot be worth risking Emma's life. It is not that simple, David. The item they want contains information that could get people killed if it falls into the wrong hands. So you are choosing to protect strangers instead of our daughter. The accusation hit me like a physical blow, partly because it echoed doubts I had been having about my decision to keep the flash drive secret for 15 years. I am trying to find a solution that saves Emma without getting other people killed, I said. But if I have to choose between Emma's safety and protecting strangers, I will choose Emma every time. Then why have we not already made the exchange? Because I do not trust them to release Emma after they get what they want. These are not people who honor agreements or show mercy to witnesses. David was quiet for several seconds. What are you planning to do? Whatever is necessary to bring our daughter home safely. After ending the call with David, I realized that tomorrow night's operation would not just determine Emma's fate. It would also reveal whether 15 years of suburban motherhood had dulled the tactical instincts that had kept me alive during some of the most dangerous missions in CIA history. Tommy looked up from his equipment preparations. You ready for this? I have to be ready. Emma's life depends on it. That is not what I asked. I asked if you are ready to be Patricia Chen again instead of Patricia Morrison. I thought about Emma's smile when I picked her up from tennis practice just 2 days ago. I thought about her excitement over being accepted into the International Relations Summer Program. I thought about all the normal teenage experiences she should have ahead of her if I could successfully navigate the next 24 hours. Yes, I said. I am ready to be whoever I need to be to get my daughter back. But even as I said the words, I wondered if Patricia Chen still existed after 15 years of dormancy, and whether the suburban mother I had become could access the lethal skills that the situation was about to require. The next morning brought news that confirmed my worst fears about the complexity of the situation. Tommy had been monitoring communications intercepts since 4 a.m., using equipment that could track encrypted messages and satellite phone communications within a 50-mile radius of Chicago. Patricia, we have a problem, Tommy said as I emerged from the hotel bathroom after a restless night of 3 hours of sleep. I intercepted communications between at least 6 different operatives using military-grade encryption. This is not a small kidnapping operation run by a few desperate criminals. Tommy showed me transcripts of the intercepted messages, which had been automatically translated from what appeared to be Ukrainian and Russian. The communications referenced multiple extraction teams, contingency plans for law enforcement interference, and most disturbingly, instructions for permanent disposal of all witnesses. They never planned to release Emma, I said, reading through the translated messages. This whole exchange scenario is designed to eliminate both of us after they recover the flash drive. Gets worse, Tommy continued, pulling up additional intelligence he had gathered during the night. Viktor Kozlov is not just seeking revenge for the Bucharest operation. He is working with Russian intelligence services to recover compromising information about American officials that could be used for blackmail and political manipulation. The implications were staggering. The flash drive I had kept hidden for 15 years contained evidence of illegal arms purchases by American senators, Pentagon officials, and intelligence personnel. In the wrong hands, that information could compromise national security and destroy dozens of careers and lives. So we are not just dealing with criminals seeking financial gain, I said. We are dealing with a state-sponsored operation designed to acquire intelligence assets for geopolitical advantage. Exactly. Which means they have resources, backup plans, and political protection that makes this much more dangerous than a typical kidnapping scenario. My phone rang with a call from Agent Coleman. When I answered, her voice carried the kind of urgency that indicated the FBI had discovered similar information through their own channels. Mrs. Morrison, we need to meet immediately. Our intelligence analysts have identified connections between your daughter's kidnapping and a broader operation targeting former intelligence officers. What kind of broader operation? We have intercepted communications suggesting that Emma is not the only family member being targeted. Similar operations may be underway against the children of other retired CIA operatives who worked on Eastern European assignments. The revelation that this was part of a coordinated campaign against multiple former CIA families meant that Emma's kidnapping was just one component of a much larger intelligence operation. Agent Coleman, I need you to understand that I am proceeding with my own recovery operation tonight regardless of FBI protocols, I said. But I want information about other potential targets so I can assess whether this situation extends beyond my immediate family. We can provide that intelligence, but only if you agree to coordinate your activities with our tactical response team. Tommy was shaking his head vigorously, indicating that involving FBI tactical units would compromise operational security and likely result in Emma's death. I will coordinate with you for intelligence sharing, but tactical operations remain under my control, I said. These people will kill Emma the moment they detect official law enforcement involvement. Mrs. Morrison, you are asking me to authorize a civilian to conduct an armed rescue operation against potentially state-sponsored operatives. The legal and political ramifications alone could end my career. Agent Coleman, I am not asking for your authorization. I am informing you of my intentions and offering to share intelligence that might help you protect other potential targets. Agent Coleman was quiet for several seconds. What do you need from us? Real-time surveillance of the exchange location starting at 1800 hours tonight. If additional operatives or vehicles approach the area, I want immediate notification. And if your operation fails, then you will need to find Emma before the people holding her decide she is no longer useful leverage. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Tommy and I began our reconnaissance of the industrial area where the exchange was scheduled to take place. Using surveillance equipment that could monitor the location from over a mile away, we identified 3 buildings that showed signs of recent activity. The primary exchange location was a vacant warehouse with multiple access points and clear sight lines that would allow kidnappers to observe approaching vehicles. But thermal imaging revealed that the building was empty except for standard security equipment. They are not planning to bring Emma to the exchange location, Tommy concluded after reviewing the surveillance data. This is definitely a termination setup designed to eliminate you after recovering the flash drive. Then we need to identify where they are actually holding her before tonight. Tommy had been tracking cell phone communications and vehicle movements throughout the day, building a pattern analysis that revealed the most likely locations for a hostage-holding facility. Based on communication intercepts and movement patterns, I think she is being held in one of 2 locations, Tommy said, pointing to satellite images of industrial buildings approximately 3 miles from the exchange site. Both are isolated facilities with limited public access and multiple escape routes. How do we determine which location without alerting them to our surveillance? We do not determine which location. We hit both locations simultaneously. Tommy's plan involved splitting our limited resources to conduct simultaneous operations at both potential hostage sites while maintaining the appearance that I would arrive at the exchange location as scheduled. I will handle one location while you handle the other, Tommy explained. Whoever finds Emma extracts her immediately and provides cover for the other operation. And if she is not at either location, then we proceed to the exchange and hope we can force them to reveal her location before they kill us. The plan was risky and relied on precise timing, superior equipment, and operational skills that I had not used in 15 years. But it was also the only approach that offered a realistic chance of recovering Emma alive. At 6 p.m., I received the call I had been expecting from my brother Marcus. Patricia, I just landed at O'Hare. Where can I meet you to discuss the legal aspects of this situation? Marcus, I told you not to come to Chicago. Your presence here creates complications I cannot manage right now. I am family, and I am a lawyer. You need professional legal representation to ensure that whatever agreements you make with these kidnappers are properly documented and enforceable. The idea that kidnapping negotiations could be treated as contractual agreements revealed how completely Marcus misunderstood the situation we were dealing with. Marcus, these people are not interested in enforceable agreements. They are international criminals who will kill Emma and me regardless of what arrangements we make. That is exactly why you need legal counsel. I can negotiate safeguards and protections that ensure everyone honors their commitments. Go back to California, Marcus. Tonight is going to be dangerous, and I cannot protect you while trying to save Emma. Patricia, you are making emotional decisions based on fear instead of rational analysis of the situation. Let me help you think through this logically. I ended the call without responding further. Marcus would spend the evening trying to locate me through official channels, probably coordinating with Agent Coleman and creating additional complications for an operation that required complete secrecy. At 8 p.m., Tommy and I conducted our final equipment check and synchronized our communication systems. Each of us carried enough firepower to handle multiple armed opponents, plus specialized equipment for breaching locked doors, disabling security systems, and providing emergency medical care. Remember, if you find Emma, your priority is immediate extraction, Tommy said as we reviewed the operational timeline one final time. Do not wait for me. Do not attempt to secure the other location. Get her out safely and rendezvous at the backup location. Understood. What if we encounter more opposition than anticipated? Then we adapt and overcome, just like old times. At 9:30 p.m., I began my approach to the first potential hostage location, a converted warehouse that had been abandoned for over 2 years but showed recent signs of electrical and security system activity. Tommy was simultaneously approaching the second location approximately 4 miles away. The thermal imaging equipment confirmed the presence of at least 4 individuals inside the building, with heat signatures consistent with one person being restrained in a central room while 3 others maintained perimeter security. My heart rate increased as I realized that the restrained heat signature was approximately the same size and body mass as Emma. Tommy, I have what looks like our target at location Alpha, I whispered into my encrypted communication device. Copy that. I am seeing 2 individuals at location Beta, but no restrained subjects. Proceeding with backup support for your location. Using lockpicking skills I had not used in over a decade, I gained access to the building through a service entrance that was not covered by the security cameras I had identified during reconnaissance. The layout was simple, with Emma apparently being held in a central office space surrounded by armed guards positioned to watch all approaches. The first guard was eliminated quietly using techniques that came back to me as naturally as riding a bicycle. 15 years of suburban motherhood had not dulled my ability to incapacitate opponents without alerting others to my presence. The second guard was more alert and detected my approach, but his reaction time was slower than my muscle memory for combat situations. The confrontation lasted less than 30 seconds and ended with one less obstacle between me and my daughter. The third guard heard the brief struggle and called out in Ukrainian to his associates. When he received no response, he began moving toward the central office where Emma was being held. This was the moment that would determine whether 15 years away from operational fieldwork had compromised my tactical abilities. The guard was armed with an automatic weapon and positioned between me and Emma's location. I had approximately 10 seconds before he would either discover his associates or decide to eliminate the hostage to prevent rescue. The training that the CIA had provided decades earlier took control of my actions without conscious decision-making. I moved through the building using sound discipline and cover techniques that allowed me to approach the guard's position undetected. When I found Emma zip-tied to a chair in what had been an office manager's workspace, she looked up at me with an expression that combined relief, confusion, and fear. "Mom, how did you find me? Who are these people?" "Emma, we need to leave immediately. I will explain everything later, but right now we need to move quickly and quietly." As I cut through Emma's restraints using a tactical knife, she stared at the weapons and equipment I was carrying. "Mom, what is all that stuff? You look like someone from an action movie." "Emma, I need you to listen carefully and do exactly what I tell you. We are going to leave this building, get into a car, and drive to safety. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. Do you understand?" Emma nodded, though her expression indicated that she was beginning to realize her suburban mother was someone completely different than she had believed for her entire life. We made it halfway to the exit before Tommy's voice came through my earpiece with information that changed everything about our situation. "Patricia, I am monitoring police communications. FBI tactical teams are moving toward both locations. Someone leaked our operational plans." The implication was immediate and terrifying. If FBI teams were approaching our location, the remaining kidnappers would assume they were facing a coordinated law enforcement operation and would likely decide to eliminate all witnesses rather than risk capture. "Emma, we need to move faster," I said, guiding her toward the exit while scanning for additional threats. But as we approached the service door I had used to enter the building, I heard vehicles approaching from multiple directions. Through the dirty windows, I could see tactical vehicles, flashing lights, and personnel in FBI windbreakers establishing a perimeter around the building. "Mom, what is happening?" Emma asked, clearly frightened by the sudden appearance of armed law enforcement officers. "Someone made a mistake," I said, realizing that Agent Coleman had decided to intervene despite our agreement that I would handle the operation independently. My phone buzzed with a call from Agent Coleman. "Mrs. Morrison, FBI tactical teams are in position around both locations. We need you to exit the building with Emma and allow our negotiators to handle the remaining suspects." "Agent Coleman, there are no remaining suspects at this location. The situation is under control. Our surveillance shows at least 2 additional heat signatures in the building." I looked around the office space where Emma had been held, trying to understand what FBI surveillance had detected that I had missed during my approach. That was when I heard voices speaking in Ukrainian coming from a section of the building I had not cleared during my rescue operation. "Emma, stay behind me and do not make any noise," I whispered, realizing that there were additional kidnappers in the building who had not been part of the guard rotation I had encountered. The voices were getting closer, and one of them was speaking English with a heavy accent that I recognized from the original ransom phone call. "The American woman should be here by now. If the FBI has compromised the operation, we eliminate the hostage and extract through the northern exit." Emma grabbed my arm. "Mom, that is the man who kidnapped me from school. His name is Dimitri, and he has been asking me questions about your job and our family." Dimitri. The name was not familiar, but the voice confirmed that we were dealing with the operational leader of the kidnapping team. "Emma, I need you to call this number and tell whoever answers that Patricia Chen needs immediate extraction support at the current location," I said, handing her a secure phone programmed with Tommy's direct line. "Mom, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure that Dimitri never threatens our family again." What happened next would either prove that Patricia Chen still existed beneath 15 years of suburban camouflage, or it would be the last mistake that Patricia Morrison ever made. But as I moved toward the voices speaking Ukrainian and planning my daughter's execution, I felt something I had not experienced in 15 years. The cold, focused clarity that had kept me alive during the most dangerous missions of my intelligence career. Patricia Chen was back. And she was going to remind everyone why the CIA's most elite operatives never truly retire. The confrontation that followed lasted less than 5 minutes but revealed truths that would change my family forever. Because when Emma saw her suburban soccer mom systematically eliminate trained killers who had planned to murder both of us, she finally understood that her entire childhood had been built on a carefully constructed lie. But that lie had been the only thing standing between her and the enemies that Patricia Chen had made during 15 years of serving her country in ways that could never be publicly acknowledged. As FBI agents secured the scene and paramedics checked Emma for injuries, Agent Coleman approached me with an expression that combined respect, concern, and bureaucratic frustration. "Mrs. Morrison, we need to discuss what just happened here and how it affects ongoing investigations into similar operations targeting other former intelligence officers." "Agent Coleman, what just happened here is that I protected my daughter using skills I learned during 15 years of government service. If there are other families being targeted, I suggest you find them before their situations escalate to the point where federal intervention becomes necessary." "And the 4 individuals who died during your rescue operation were armed criminals who kidnapped my daughter and planned to kill both of us regardless of whether I complied with their demands. Their deaths were the result of their decision to threaten an American citizen on American soil." Agent Coleman nodded, though I could see her calculating the paperwork and political implications of explaining how a suburban mother had single-handedly eliminated a professional kidnapping team. "There will need to be extensive debriefings and congressional oversight regarding this incident," she said. "There will be whatever level of oversight is consistent with protecting national security and the safety of other former intelligence officers who may be targeted by similar operations." As we spoke, Tommy emerged from the second building with information that would complicate our situation even further. "Patricia, the second location was a coordination center for a much larger operation. We recovered computers, communications equipment, and targeting information for at least 12 other former CIA families. The revelation that Emma's kidnapping had been just one component of a coordinated campaign against multiple former intelligence families meant that tonight's operation was only the beginning of what would likely become a prolonged conflict. But for now, Emma was safe. And for the first time in 15 years, I no longer had to pretend to be someone I was not. The price of that authenticity would be explaining to my daughter why her mother had spent her entire life living a lie designed to protect them both from enemies she had made while serving her country. As Emma and I drove away from the industrial complex where her kidnapping ordeal had ended, she asked the question I had been dreading since the moment she saw me eliminate her captors. "Mom, who are you really?" "I am your mother who loves you more than anything in the world," I replied. "But I am also someone who spent 15 years doing things that most people cannot imagine in order to protect our country from people who want to hurt American families. Like the men who kidnapped me. Exactly like the men who kidnapped me. And unfortunately, there are probably more people like them who will want to hurt us because of things I did before you were born." Emma was quiet for several minutes as she processed the implications of what she had witnessed and what I had told her. "Does this mean our normal life is over?" I thought about the intelligence Tommy had recovered indicating that we were part of a larger target list. I thought about the FBI investigation that would require months of debriefings and congressional testimony. I thought about my parents and brother, who would demand explanations for events they could never fully understand. "I do not know," I admitted. "But I promise you that whatever happens next, I will use every skill I have to keep you safe and give you the best life possible. Will you teach me some of those skills?" The question surprised me. Why would you want to learn them? Because if there are people who want to hurt our family, maybe I should know how to protect myself instead of depending on other people to rescue me. I looked at Emma in the rearview mirror and saw something I had never noticed before. Beneath the typical teenager exterior was the same analytical intelligence and emotional strength that had driven me toward a career in intelligence. "When you turn 18, if you still want to learn those skills, I will teach you everything I know. Promise." Promise. For anyone watching this who has ever had to choose between protecting your family and maintaining comfortable lives, I want you to know that authenticity is worth the complications it creates. The people who matter will adapt to the truth about who you really are. And the people who cannot handle that truth were never truly part of your life anyway. The skills we develop to survive dangerous situations do not disappear just because we try to live normal lives. And sometimes, the most important mission of your career is the one that saves the people you love most. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Remember that the most powerful revenge against people who underestimate you is proving that their assumptions about your capabilities were completely wrong. And that sometimes, the suburban mom driving carpool is the most dangerous person in the room. 3 days after Emma's rescue, the full scope of what we had disrupted became clear when Deputy Director Harrison called with intelligence that would reshape my understanding of everything that had happened. "Patricia, the operation you dismantled was much larger than we initially realized," Michael said during a secure video call from Langley. The targeting list Tommy recovered contained names of 43 former CIA operatives and their families across 7 countries. 43 families, I repeated, watching Emma through my kitchen window as she practiced tennis serves in our backyard, trying to return to some semblance of normal teenage life. Viktor Kozlov was working with a coalition of Russian intelligence services and Eastern European criminal networks to systematically acquire leverage against former American operatives. Your flash drive was just one component of a broader intelligence gathering operation that had been in development for over 2 years. The implications were staggering. Emma's kidnapping had not been an isolated incident of revenge, but part of a coordinated campaign designed to compromise dozens of former intelligence officers who possessed sensitive information about American operations. What happened to the other families on the list? Thanks to the intelligence you and Tommy recovered, we were able to warn them and provide protective services. 3 other kidnapping operations were prevented, and 2 that were already in progress were successfully resolved. Were there casualties? Michael's pause answered my question before he spoke. "We lost one family in Prague. Parents and 2 children. They were targeted because the father had worked on operations similar to yours during the same time period. I closed my eyes, thinking about another intelligence officer's family who had paid the ultimate price for their parents' service to their country. Children who would never grow up to ask their mother to teach them the skills necessary to protect themselves. Michael, I need you to understand something. Emma knows everything now. She saw what happened during the rescue, and she has been asking questions that I cannot deflect with vague answers about government work. How is she handling the truth? Better than I expected, but she is also asking to be trained in operational skills when she turns 18. Following in her mother's footsteps. I hope not. But I want her to be prepared for the possibility that our past might create future threats. Patricia, there is something else you need to know. The Congressional Intelligence Committee wants to interview you about the Kozlov operation and its connection to the recent events. Your 15-year retirement does not exempt you from oversight responsibilities regarding classified operations. The prospect of congressional testimony meant that details of my CIA career would become part of official records, potentially exposing information that could endanger other operatives or ongoing missions. What kind of congressional testimony? Closed session with the Intelligence Oversight Committee. They want to understand how classified information from a 15-year-old operation was compromised and used against American families. When? Next week. And Patricia, they are also interested in speaking with Emma as a witness to the kidnapping and rescue operation. The idea of my 15-year-old daughter being questioned by congressional investigators about her kidnapping ordeal and her mother's lethal response was unacceptable. Emma is a minor who was the victim of a traumatic kidnapping experience. She should not be subjected to congressional interrogation about events she had no control over. I agree, but the committee has legal authority to compel testimony from material witnesses in matters of national security. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visit from someone I had not seen since my retirement from the CIA. Catherine Walsh, my former handler and mentor, stood at my front door wearing civilian clothes but carrying herself with the unmistakable bearing of someone who had spent decades in intelligence work. Catherine, what brings you to Chicago? I asked, though I suspected her visit was related to the congressional testimony Michael had mentioned. I heard about Emma's situation and wanted to check on both of you, Catherine said, though her expression suggested she had additional reasons for the visit. May I come in? We sat in my living room, where Emma joined us after I called her inside from her tennis practice. Catherine observed Emma with the professional assessment skills that all intelligence officers developed, evaluating how well she was recovering from her kidnapping experience. Emma, your mother has told me how brave you were during your ordeal, Catherine said. Not many 15-year-olds could handle that kind of situation with such composure. I was terrified most of the time, Emma replied honestly. But I kept thinking about how my mom would want me to stay calm and observe everything that was happening. Catherine looked at me with raised eyebrows. You taught her operational awareness without revealing your background. I taught her general safety principles that I thought would be useful for any teenager. I never imagined they would be necessary for surviving international kidnapping. Emma, what did you observe about your captors that might be useful for preventing similar operations? Emma's answer demonstrated analytical capabilities that reminded me of my own early intelligence training. She provided detailed descriptions of her kidnappers' accents, physical characteristics, equipment, and behavioral patterns that revealed sophisticated operational security awareness. They knew things about our family that they should not have been able to discover through normal research, Emma said. Personal details about my school schedule, my friends, my activities. Someone had been watching us for weeks or months before they took me. Catherine nodded approvingly. That is excellent observational work. You noticed patterns that many adults would have missed. After Emma went upstairs to work on homework, Catherine explained the real reason for her visit. Patricia, the congressional testimony is going to be more complicated than Michael indicated. There are members of the Intelligence Committee who believe that retired operatives should not maintain access to classified materials or operational capabilities. What does that mean for my situation? It means they may use your case to establish new policies regarding former intelligence officers. mandatory surrender of all classified materials, regular monitoring of retired operatives, restrictions on maintaining operational equipment or training. The implications were clear. My successful rescue of Emma could be used as justification for increased government control over former intelligence officers, potentially compromising the safety and independence of hundreds of people who had served their country. Catherine, are you here to prepare me for the testimony, or to warn me about its potential consequences? Both. And to make you an offer that might resolve the situation in ways that benefit everyone involved. Catherine opened a briefcase and removed documents that bore the seal of the Director of National Intelligence. The agency wants to offer you a consulting contract that would bring you back into active status for specialized operations that require your particular skill set. Full operational authority, unlimited resources, and the legal protections that come with current intelligence credentials. In exchange for what? In exchange for your testimony focusing on the operational success of the rescue rather than the policy implications of retired operatives maintaining capabilities independent of government oversight. I studied the contract documents, which offered financial compensation far beyond what I had earned during my original CIA career, plus benefits and protections that would extend to Emma as a dependent of an active intelligence officer. What kind of specialized operations? Counterintelligence work targeting the same networks that orchestrated Emma's kidnapping. There are dozens of similar operations being planned against American interests, and your experience with this specific threat makes you uniquely qualified to disrupt them. The offer was tempting, both for the financial security it would provide and for the opportunity to prevent other families from experiencing what Emma and I had endured. Catherine, I retired from intelligence work to give Emma a stable, normal childhood. Accepting this contract would mean returning to a life of classified missions, irregular schedules, and constant security concerns. Patricia, after what happened last week, do you really believe that Emma's life will ever be completely normal again? Catherine was right. The enemies I had made during my CIA career had demonstrated their willingness to target my family, and there was no guarantee that eliminating the immediate threat would prevent future operations. I need to discuss this with Emma before making any decisions. Of course. But I need an answer by tomorrow morning. The Congressional testimony is scheduled for Monday, and the contract needs to be in place before then if we are going to proceed with this approach. That evening, Emma and I had the most serious conversation of her life. I explained the Congressional testimony situation, the policy implications for other retired intelligence officers, and the contract offer that could resolve many of our immediate concerns. Mom, if you take this job, does that mean you will be going on dangerous missions again? It would mean that I might be called upon for operations that require my specific experience and capabilities. But it would also mean that we would have government protection and resources that could keep us safer than we are as private citizens. Emma was quiet for several minutes, processing the implications of what I had explained. Will they train me too, if you work for them again? Not until you are 18, and only if you choose that path after finishing your education. What happens if you do not take the job? Then we continue living as private citizens, but with the knowledge that there may be other people who want to hurt us because of my past work. Emma looked directly at me with an expression of maturity that seemed far beyond her 15 years. Mom, for my whole life, you have made decisions based on what you thought would be best for me. This time, I want to make the decision together. What do you think we should do? I think we should find a way to help protect other families so they do not have to go through what we went through. And if that means you have to go back to work as a spy, then I can handle that. The next morning, I called Catherine and accepted the consulting contract that would bring me back into active intelligence work 15 years after I had believed that chapter of my life was permanently closed. Welcome back to the agency, Patricia, Catherine said. Your first assignment briefing is tomorrow at 10:00 hours. What kind of assignment? There is a network of arms dealers in Miami who have been using similar tactics to target retired military and intelligence families. We want you to eliminate the threat before they can successfully complete any kidnapping operations. As I hung up the phone, I realized that Patricia Morrison, Suburban soccer mom, was about to disappear permanently. In her place, Patricia Chen, Senior Operations Officer, was returning to active duty with the experience of someone who had learned that protecting your family sometimes requires embracing the most dangerous aspects of who you really are. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway as I was reviewing the contract documents one final time. "Mom, when do you start your new job?" "Tomorrow." "Are you scared?" I thought about the question honestly. Returning to intelligence work after 15 years would require updating skills, learning new technologies, and adapting to operational environments that had evolved significantly since my retirement. But I was not scared. For the first time in 15 years, I was exactly where I belonged. "No, sweetheart. I am not scared. I am ready." Emma smiled. "Good. Because I have been thinking about what I want to study in college, and international relations is looking really interesting." As I watched my daughter walk back upstairs to finish her homework, I realized that the most important mission of my career had not been eliminating arms dealers or rescuing hostages in foreign countries. It had been raising a daughter strong enough to handle the truth about who her mother really was, and confident enough to chart her own course through a world that was far more dangerous and complex than most people ever realized. The suburban mom identity had served its purpose for 15 years. But Patricia Chen was back, and she had a family to protect and a country to serve. And this time, she was not working alone.